Good morning, everybody, and may I welcome all councillors, officers and members of the public present and those viewing on YouTube at this meeting. My name is Manda Rigby. I'm the chair of the subcommittee, and I'll now introduce the other members of the subcommittee to you. And I would like to ask them to confirm whether or not they are present. First of all, Councillor Steve Hedges.
Present, Chair.
Thank you very much. And then Councillor Michael Evans.
Present.
Thank you very much. Also present, we have Terrell Wallin, Shane, who is our legal officer, licensing officer, Shane Lewis, who is our legal officer, and Mark Durnford, who is our democratic services officer. Could I remind councillors, officers and members of the public to keep background noise to a minimum, to only speak one person at a time and not to speak over others. Please can everyone now mute their microphones and only unmute them when they're invited to speak. Please indicate if you wish to speak by using the chat facility on Zoom by typing MIS, may I speak, and you will be called upon to speak. Because of the nature of licensing, I will be asking people in order, so you probably don't need to type MIS because you're going to be asked whether or not you want to speak anyway. If a member of the subcommittee has to leave the meeting, then please draw my attention to this in the chat facility. The meeting will then need to adjourn as 3 members are required at all times. When returning, please also draw my attention to this in the same way. Members should also inform me if they lose connection and miss any part of this meeting. So that is our welcome and introductions done. Second part is apologies for absence and substitutions. Do we have any of those, Mr. Durnford?
No, Chair, glad to say you're all present and correct.
Perfect. Members of the subcommittee, item 3, have any of you any declarations of interest? Councillor Evans.
No, I haven't.
Councillor Hedges.
No, Chair.
I do need to declare that I know one of the people who is speaking in front of us today, as I know Sally Rothwell from when she was chair of CARA and I was her councillor, but I can confirm that at no stage have we had any conversations at all about this particular licence issue in front of us today, and I am therefore in no way predetermined, and I will listen to the evidence before me and make the best decision that I can. Item number 4, to announce any urgent business agreed by the chair, and I haven't agreed anything. So what I will do now is item number 5, which is go through the licensing procedure. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this, but I thought it might be worthwhile just to go through exactly what we're going to do today. And if at any stage during the day you get lost or there's a point that you don't understand, please ask and we can then re-explain it. So, first of all, can I confirm, has everyone here, have you actually received and understood the licensing procedure up till now? I'm seeing a couple of blank faces, seeing some thumbs up. Right, okay, in that case, I definitely will go through it. So what will happen in a minute is there'll be a summary by the licensing officer, who in this case is Terrell. And then the applicant will present their case and they may call witnesses. At that stage, the applicant can be questioned by those people who have registered to speak and by the members of the committee. Then the people who registered to speak, who in this case we're calling other parties, will speak, and they may also call witnesses, and then in exactly the same way the applicant can then ask them questions, as can members of the committee. I don't believe that we have any responsible authorities who wish to make a presentation, so there won't be a presentation from the police. And then the other parties, i.e. the people registered to speak, sum up, and then the applicant sums up, and then we go into private session, we make our decision, and we come back and tell you. It sounds more complex than it actually is, but does that make kind of sense? In the interest of fairness, I give the same amount of time to both sides. So the applicant will have up to 20 minutes to make their case, and the other parties will have up to 20 minutes between them to make their case. So I think if everyone is happy with that, then I'll ask Terrell if you could present the issue in front of us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. This hearing is to determine a variation application made under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003 by Dorian Gray Limited in respect of the common room to Savile Row, Bath BA1 to QP. The variation is seeking to add the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises within the hours already authorised for consumption on premises, namely Monday to Thursday from 10 until 2 the following morning, Friday and Saturday from 10 until 3 the following morning, and Sunday from 12 until 2 the following morning. And to remove conditions attached to the current premises licence that conflict with this proposal, namely there shall be no off sales, and sales of intoxicating liquor is to be limited only to bona fide members of a club existing on the premises and their guests. The proposal to add off sales would enable the premises to provide off sales in the traditional sense of the word, offer an alcohol delivery service, or enable customers to consume alcohol at the tables and chairs authorised under the pavement licence. The application was duly served on all the relevant responsible authorities and was advertised both at the premises and within the Western Daily Press. During the statutory representation period, 3 representations of objection were received. Each expressed concern that the applicant's proposals are likely to undermine the prevention of public nuisance licensing objective, whilst collectively they relate to both the proposal for off sales and the removal of the conditions. No representations have been received from any of the responsible authorities, and the committee is asked to determine the application. Chair.
Thank you very much, Terrell. May I now just check who we have with us and do their introductions. Do I have Harry Brett on behalf of the applicant? Yes, I do, thank you. And do I have, who are the other people I have? Do I have Councillor Andy Furs present?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Do I have Sally Rothwell present? I think I can see you waving, thank you. And David Daniels.
Yes, present.
Perfect, thank you. I think they're all the people we're expecting, aren't they, Terrell? I don't think we're expecting anyone else.
Chair, Cara, we're going to call a witness, Tom Dimitrov. Is he not here?
I can't see anyone else. I think we need to proceed, and if the gentleman arrives, then Mike, could you let him in from the waiting room and we will proceed that way. But I think we can't wait. If anyone from Cara wants to drop him a text or something to say that we're on now, that would be useful potentially. That being the case, we move on to the applicant. That's you, Mr. Brett, and you have up to 20 minutes to say why you'd like these conditions removed.
Hello. So first, maybe I should introduce the common room. We're on Savile Row. We're a 54-person venue. We have a late license. We used to be a bit more of a nightclub. Now we're more of a cocktail bar. And with all the regulations that have been happening lately, we've been opening earlier, closing earlier. We have we've started doing teas, coffees, and we're just trying to change our business model a little bit so that we can be a little bit more proactive with, you know, how things are working out in the late night industry, which, you know, isn't exactly a great time for us at the minute. So what we would like to do is I would like to be able to offer takeaway cocktails to the customers who are in. And I would also like to be able to start a delivery service of cocktails that are made, and then we make them, bag them up, and then bring them to other people. Yeah, that's basically it. We're not asking for, you know, we don't want it. That's basically it.
Okay, thank you. That's clear what it is that you're trying to achieve. First of all, I'll ask the members of the subcommittee if they've got any questions. Councillor Evans, I'm going to come to you first. Have you got any questions for the applicant?
So I'm out to understand that you could say potentially be delivering cocktails in the early hours of the morning.
I don't think that's something we would do necessarily, because I don't think it would probably be a thing that we do a couple of times a week. The labor involved in doing something like this is quite extensive. Having a person there every night till 3 o'clock in the morning doing deliveries again is quite a bit of a cost. It would probably just be a thing where you get deliveries probably on a Monday or a Friday, possibly from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m., something like that. Nothing mental. I don't think that when we buy alcohol, we buy alcohol at a price that's more than you would get at a supermarket. So for me to say, yes, I'm going to be delivering bottles of vodka that I've paid 20 quid for 30 quid, if I were to make a profit, I wouldn't be doing that, because clearly you could just go to a supermarket and buy what you want yourself. You see what I mean? I mean, obviously the potential's there, but it's not really something that would be viable for us. It would just be, you know, a cocktail in a pouch, and we're looking at something like it's 20 quid for a pouch which holds about 4 cocktails, and it's not something that you do till 3 o'clock in the morning. We've got better things to do at 3 o'clock in the morning than run stuff around at probably, like, what's the delivery, about £5 now? It's not cost effective. We would package all our deliveries into one go, and obviously it would be during the afternoon, not at 2, 3 in the morning. Does that answer that question?
Thank you. Yes. Could I have one more, Chair, please? Another potential that occurs to me is, would you be able to make off sales at or near your closing time, and then people take those off sales to your tables outside and consume them there?
No, our tables are only till 11 p.m.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hedges, have you got any questions?
They've already been asked, Chair, so no, I haven't.
Okay, I'm just going to ask one sort of question that's a little bit of a follow-up. Given what you just said about the nature of your business model, and that, you know, you wouldn't be sitting there till 3 in the morning just in case someone phoned up for a cocktail, did you ever consider, when you were removing the conditions, saying that you would have time limits on things like the off sales? Was that something that you considered doing?
No, there's always the off chance that somebody, you know, wants to take a cocktail bag home with them at the end of the night. You know, somebody who's already in the premise, that would be an option. We could, you know, we just have them stocked in the fridge and they can take them home and have them there.
Okay, I understand. So we now move on to questions from the other parties. I'll go around in order, that probably makes sense. If you haven't got any questions, that's fine. Can I just remind you that this is the time for questions to the applicant. This isn't the time for you to make any points that you want to make yourself, that comes later. So have you got any questions? I will start with you, Sally Rothwell.
No, but Manda, can I just clarify? Mr. Dimitrov couldn't get on from his premises at home, so he's currently with me. So, as in when we call him, can Sally Rothwell actually change sex and age and become Mr. Dimitrov?
Yes, that will be fine. Thank you for thank you for the update. But you have no questions at this time.
At this time, no.
Okay, lovely. Mr. Daniels, have you got any questions?
Thank you, Councillor. I must admit, it would be interesting to get a little bit more clarity on why the Common Room feels this is something which would actually enhance their business, because it sounded from the description that they're not, you know, they're talking about off-sale cocktails, but in the same breath he's saying he doesn't think that many people would want to do this. So I'm wondering what the sort of business idea behind this is, because if not many people are going to be interested, and the odd person might be interested in taking a pouch home, how is that enhancing the business case? I'm failing to to understand it. I'm someone that has a part ownership in a premises in London, and that sort of initiative doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So I'm just wondering whether there's some more clarity on the business, because it seemed a rather vague justification for wanting to have such late night off sales.
Okay, Mr. Brett.
Okay. Well, obviously this. At the moment, any avenue towards making any sort of income is something that we're looking at. We're a 54-person venue. So with the current restrictions, we allow about 30 people in. With the 10 p.m. closure, when we were making most of our money sort of between 8 and midnight, we're now, not doing that well with the 10 to midnight sales, obviously. This is an extra avenue of income. It's something we want to pursue so that we can sort of develop this takeaway side of the business. I don't think it's a great, money spinner right now, but I think in the future, we can develop this and turn this into a sustainable, viable business that employs 1, maybe 2 people. So that's what we're thinking.
Thank you. Is that your only question, Mr. Daniels?
Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Councillor Furze.
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions, really. One was clarity on the use of the tables and chairs. I'm not sure whether Mr. Brett said it was an 11 p.m. cut-off anyway, so no one is permitted to use them after 11 p.m. any day of the week. I just wanted clarity on that. And the other one was to try to distinguish between a delivery service, get his views on distinguishing between a delivery service, which personally I don't think is any problem, and the off sales, i.e. somebody taking I think it says in the papers, a sealed container away with them, and the impact that has around either the locality or the city generally, recognising this is in the cumulative impact area of the city, which I don't think the papers picks up either. But I just wanted his views, Mr. Brett's views on those 2, just clarity on the 11 p.m. and the distinction between the delivery and the off sales, please.
Okay, so we have 2 tables outside, which are part of our regular license. Those tables are licensed at 11 p.m. They have to be brought in at 11 p.m. We have a further 4 tables outside that were granted to us with a pavement license that came into effect a few months ago. Those tables we can have out till midnight. However, it's been clarified to us that we are not allowed to have anybody drinking alcohol on them past 11 p.m. So we bring those in anyway. So we're allowed to have those tables out till 12, but they get brought in with the other ones as a process because they're not useful to us if we cannot sell product to those tables. With the delivery service, yes, it gets sent to people's homes. With the takeaway service, obviously people are encouraged to not drink in the street. We have a doorman outside anyway till 3:30 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays, we have a doorman outside till 2:30 p.m. Sundays through to Thursdays. So people are encouraged to not drink in the street, and they are dispersed at the end of the night. I don't, at the end of you could grab a can of lager from your house and go drink in a park at 2 o'clock in the morning. At some stage, it's up to somebody's responsibility. Remind them of their social responsibility, and we move them out of the area as best we can.
Thank you for that. And thank you for the clarity on the tables and chairs. I think that's important to recognise that you bring those tables and chairs in. And okay, it's not for me to guide the members on the committee, because I'm not on the committee. I'm a member of the public speaking now, really effectively on that side of the fence. But that cut off of 11 p.m. I think is very important, because I did have I have lived in a flat in Alfred Street years ago, and it is one of the noisiest streets in Bath. And that walk through that passageway where you are is a very
is this a question, Councillor?
no, I'm not. I'm just clarifying the follow up on the tables and chairs, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Terrell, I saw you put your hand up. Is there something else that you'd like to add?
If I may, Chair, I just wanted to clarify and pick up on what Harry said about being told that no one's allowed to consume alcohol out there at 11. That is currently the case, because the pavement licence is out of sync with the government's provision to allow off sales until 2300 hours without the need for premises licence holders to vary their licence. So just to clarify, a pavement licence has been granted until midnight on Friday and Saturday, but there is no permission to consume alcohol between 11 and midnight by either the premises licence or the amendment to the Licensing Act that the government provided when people only didn't have dual licences, they only had on sales. So if granted, he could utilise his pavement licence to midnight, because it's not a ban on no alcohol out there until 2300. It's just that there is this disparity between the authorisations. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that clarification. I think that is very clear now. Unless anyone else indicates, I believe we've asked all our questions. Oh, Councillor Evans, you have another.
Yeah, just a thought. We've got this moment. I just wondered how that's operated. How you become a member? What the sort of logistics are there?
I don't think that's a question really for Mr. Brett, though I did miss half of the question. Could you maybe just repeat your question?
Yes, I just to understand how the premises operates at the moment, I was wondering how one becomes a member, what the sort of functionality is with regard to that.
That absolutely is a question for Mr. Brett. Sorry, I'm glad I asked you to re-ask your question.
Membership is, you become a member, we don't charge, you just become a member. You have to sign in to come in. You have to leave your name, your address, your phone number, your email address, and the name, the address, and the phone number of all your guests, which currently with COVID regulations, it's, you know, the same as COVID regulations, really. We always use the same staff on the door, so we know who our regulars are. Our regulars have a different sign-in book where we just basically tick them off when they come in because they're classed as members. But if you don't know anybody, you're not allowed in, basically.
Thank you.
Councillor Hedges.
Just on this membership thing, do you ask for proof of identification?
We do, if we don't know who you are. We also operate an over 21 policy, so, you know, ID is checked very regularly.
Okay, I think that really is the end of all our questions now. So we move on to the place where the other parties make their case. You have 20 minutes between you, and that includes anything that your witness wants to say. I don't know if you decided between you how you want to run this, or shall I just go round you in order? Round you in order. I'll do the same as I did last time. Then I'll start with Sally Rothwell.
Good morning, everybody. The interplay of legislation under the current circumstances, as we've heard, is incredibly complicated. As I understand it, if this variation is permitted, sales of alcohol would actually be enabled for sales up to midnight at the weekend. They would have to be really quite substantial to justify this. But the really important aspect of this application is it's a variation of the premises license, which of course attaches not only to the common room, but to any other enterprise which could subsequently offer the same kind of thing had the common room ceased to trade and they took it over. Off sales would be permitted during trading hours up to 2 a.m. on Sunday to Thursday and 3 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. Now, to make a real difference to profitability, the volume of off sales would have to be large and would extend until the early hours of the morning. We have heard that this is not intended at the moment, but it could well be developed. Of course, it could involve not only over-the-counter purchases, but also deliveries, though hopefully not late at night. Now, the additional flow of people and vehicles would be potentially extremely disruptive in a residential neighbourhood. And as you will hear, the current track record of these premises is not good. And if it is exacerbated by greatly increased activity, as we suspect there would be, it could badly affect the quality of life of those living nearby. I would therefore ask you to refuse this application on the grounds of the additional public nuisance it would cause. But if you are not so minded, please could the off sales be restricted to 11 p.m. in line with the other licensed premises permitted to do off sales in the same street. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is this the time when you wish to call your witness as well?
Yes, I would. This is going to involve a certain degree of sleight of hand and moving of a tablet, if you will bear with me a moment.
Good morning, and my apologies for having problems joining you earlier. I have just a couple of observations. I think that perhaps the best way to use the time you have is to simply ask me questions. I do question the social utility of this proposal, and I was very interested in the loose membership criteria. But my own observation is to be a firsthand witness to quite a considerable amount of firsthand noise, antisocial behavior, general noise and buffoonery at the very early hours of the night on a very consistent basis, which I personally and repeatedly traced back towards the common room, having been woken up almost on a nightly basis and having dressed at 1, 2 in the morning to walk down to the common room and very politely ask the manager of the premises to please encourage their doormen to encourage the patrons to return into the common room rather than stand outside and yell and sing and make noise and so forth. But let me leave it at that, and let me open it to you. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Yeah, so what we do now, I think you might not have been at the beginning of the meeting, we are very prescribed legally about what we do and how we do it. So we're not asking any questions at the moment. We are in the middle of the 20 minutes that are given to other parties to make their case. I'll move on therefore to Mr. Daniels.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Just very briefly, really, from me, just as context, I've been a resident in Bennett Street, which is very close to this premises for 14 years, since 2007. And I think also contextually, you know, we have a lot of residents. It's a residential area, and we have lots of young, old, disabled people living in Bennett Street. And we've also got 4 alcohol-focused licensed premises already in the area, and one of which is the common room. And I would echo perhaps the previous speaker in saying that I think the common room is perhaps the most disruptive and noisy of the venues. So we, in this area, we are subjected to considerable noise and drunken behaviour, unfortunately. And this is often after 12 o'clock, so after midnight. And I believe this application will simply exacerbate that problem. We do have a lot of noise from patrons of the common room standing on the pavement outside It's a sort of a funnel effect it has, that particular location. And there is a lot of noise traveling up and down the street. And I'm also interested in the membership. I don't think I would classify that as a membership organization or venue. Seems anyone can go in there. But the behavior is not great. I don't see the application having any benefit for the local residents of the area, only negatives. And I can't see any, real value for residents in having an off sales at 2 a.m. in the morning. I just don't see it of any benefit whatsoever. I can't see, honestly, from what Mr. Brett has said, how the application has any viable business application at the moment. He said it himself. It doesn't work at the moment. So why do it? The worrying thing, I think, that has been said today was that this could be developed in the future. And yes, it could. It could become the off-sales venue for those who have finished their drinking in venues such as the Common Room to come and purchase alcohol and stand around in the streets and consume it. I don't think many people go out to purchase alcohol at 2 a.m. to take it home and have a quiet drink. They usually want to finish the night off with some off sales in our streets. And unfortunately, that has caused us considerable problems in the past and still does. So this will only exacerbate it. And therefore, I would urge you to turn this down with perhaps the proviso that Mrs. Rothwell has said, that put it in line with some of the other venues in the area, if that's your feeling. But I don't think this venue has done well for us in the past. The teas and coffees comment, I think, is irrelevant. This is about late night alcohol consumption in our streets. And please remember, if you would, that this is a heavily residential area already at the sort of interface with the night economy. Very difficult for us. Thank you very much.
You're on mute, Manda.
That leaves us with up to 11 minutes for council affairs.
I won't take 11 minutes, thank you, Chair, but the issues of, so there are a number of issues here. One is the issue of noise, and I think the residents have made that clear. And as I said before, I've also been a temporary resident in Alfred Street, and I do think this particular locality, because of the size and scale of the assembly rooms, echoes all of that noise around, and anything beyond 11 p.m. is quite intrusive to any resident living in that area. And the common rooms, as said by the previous speaker, is one of the main culprits of that, whether by desire or otherwise, after 11 p.m. and late at night, the 2 a.m., 3 a.m. issues. So that's been said, yeah. The issue of tables and chairs beyond 11 p.m., I think Terrell made that clear, that this, by granting this, we would allow basically the use of tables and chairs outside until 12 p.m. And I think that's a concern that would bring that gathering, and what the previous residents have said about people finishing the night off, because I don't envisage people leaving their homes to come and get a late night cocktail, but I do imagine people drifting through and picking one up on the way. The delivery, so it's the off, to me, it's the off sales and that late night issue. Yeah, the delivery service, I think we could put to one side. If you had a delivery service, personally, I have no concern about that at all. It's a bona fide business doing its job and trying to make sure that you stay afloat. So I fully understand that. The cumulative impact has not been picked up within the papers, and the other issue is the rationale for removal of the rationale for the conditions in the first place. Now, there's a long history before I think Mr. Brett turned up in the common rooms of this premises. And as Sally said, it's the premises that we're licensing, not the individual. Yeah. So if Mr. Brett moved on, yeah, that license still applies to the business and not to the individual. And therefore that's where my concern lies, because there's been a poor history of this premises before Mr. Brett turned up. And I think that's a concern that we could slide back into that. So those conditions were placed for a reason, and there's nothing in the paper saying that the reasons for placing those conditions have now gone away. And I think that is that's one of the reasons I made my objection to this in the first place, that there's no rationale and no argument placed as why those conditions, the problems arising from those conditions being placed in the first place, have now gone away. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. And that's very good timing as well. So we now move on to questions. The first people who ask questions are the members of the committee. I've got quite a few questions, but I'll let Councillor Hedges go first.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think it's our place as a licensed committee to talk about the business model. It's the license that we're here to talk about. Anyway, my question to everybody would be, do they think that most of the noise is caused by people standing outside smoking?
Anyone want to take that up from the other parties?
Amanda?
Muted, Sally. Yeah.
May I relay what Mr. Dimitrov has just said to me?
Yeah.
He says he thinks that smoking is part but not the whole, from his observations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hedges, any more questions? No. Councillor Evans, have you any questions?
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if the residents think that removing the condition on guests would make any difference, since it seems to be members of the public can quite easily be members, as it were, anyway. Do they think that one's a bit irrelevant?
Any of the other parties want to take that up? Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I just had someone making a strange noise downstairs, so I apologise. I didn't quite catch the question.
Councillor Evans, you want to question?
Yeah, I was just wondering about the limiting to bona fide members for the sale of alcohol. We've heard that actually becoming a member is not an onerous process. So I was wondering if you'd agree that that doesn't make any difference. That could be removed without making any difference to your problems with the premises.
I'm not quite sure what the question is. Sorry, I don't think anyone would be able to tell who was a member and who wasn't a member, and it would be quite a proper member or a bona fide member. Doesn't seem to be very clear at all in the establishment what is a member and what isn't. Anyone can be a member. They just need to sign in and become a bona fide member.
Yes, exactly. So to be on a parallel with other premises, wouldn't it be would it be acceptable in your eyes for that condition to be removed, since it doesn't have a
Does anyone want to answer the question? I think what Councillor Evans is asking is, would that be acceptable for that particular condition just to be removed?
Amanda? Yes, given that you can become a member that easily, I don't think it's probably either here or there. I mean, if one can simply sign in, it's not providing any kind of safeguard. So removing that, I don't think it's going to make a difference. It's the other variation which is a concern to my members.
Lovely, thank you for that clarity. As I knew would happen, my co-members have asked some of the questions that I was going to ask, but I do still have a couple left, I think. The first one actually is probably more a question to Terrell rather than the other parties, but I think if I get the answer to that, it may inform a question that I wish to ask the other parties. During what you said, you talked a lot about there being a lot of, certainly in the past, historic problems with the common room. and that there'd been many complaints, etc. I note that the responsible authorities didn't wish to say anything today. Do we have any information, Terrell, to either back up or not give evidence to the fact that the claim is being made that the Common Rooms has traditionally been a problematic venue? Because I'd hate that to stay on record if we don't actually have the evidence to back it up.
Thank you, Chair. From an enforcement point of view, the Common Room hasn't been on our radar for the amount of years since that condition was put on about membership, but I can confirm that several complaints were received by Mr. Dimitrov. So everything that he has said, I can confirm that written complaints were received, they were logged, they were passed to the case officer, and I believe the case officer met with Mr. Dimitrov and also met with Mr. Brett. So, yes.
Thank you very much. And in terms of the responsible authorities, in terms of the police, have they had any involvement?
Because of the frequency of the allegations made regarding to noise and antisocial behaviour, especially during the summer months, we listed, you know, they've been part of a multi-agency list of visits. So the police, environmental protection, they would all, you know, they'd all take part in these multi-agency visits that are carried out on a monthly basis.
Lovely, thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. I can see you wish to speak, Councillor Hedges, but I'm going to keep going because I've got a couple more questions and then I will come to you, I promise. Can I ask the other parties, what are the grounds on which they are asking us to consider not taking these conditions off? Because I heard quite a lot about viability of business, which, as someone else has just said, is absolutely none of the concern of the licensing subcommittee at all. And also I heard about this isn't a social good, it's not great for the community, it's not, you know, it's not a business product that people need. Again, whilst I'm not saying they're unimportant in the wider world, in terms of the licensing subcommittee, they are of absolutely no relevance whatsoever. We have to look at harm caused by licensing activities caused against the licensing objectives. What are the licensable activities that you are objecting to, and what licensing objectives do you think they're harming?
May I speak? We brought our objection under causing additional public nuisance, which I believe is one of the 4 objectives, and we feel that very strongly.
So it's the public nuisance objective is the one that
Absolutely.
you... Those are my questions. Mr. Daniels, you wish to add something to Sally's answer?
Just because I'm representing myself as ourself, our household, rather than anything else. I would agree with the same reasons as put forward by Sally Rothwell.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Terrell, before I ask Councillor Hedges to come in, I will get to you, Councillor Hedges, I promise. Terrell, you wish to speak?
Yes, sorry, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out that the main reason for applying to have those 2 particular conditions removed, because if they're left on the licence and the application was granted or granted in part, they could conflict. So we could have one page saying that off-sales are permitted. You can't leave then a condition that says there'll be no off-sales. Likewise, if there are no concerns with regards to providing a delivery service, then how can you get people to sign in to your premises when you're doing internet sales? So to keep it, you know, simple and clear, in reality, there are aspects of off-sales which those conditions do not sit with. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hedges, it really is your turn now.
And I remembered the question, Chair. That's good, isn't it? Terrell, what I want to know really is what were the outcomes of the visits? I know they have visits from you and the police, but what was the outcome?
I think that's to you, Terrell.
I wasn't the case officer, and the case officer hasn't made a representation. Shane, can I ask your opinion on this, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Carol. Sorry, I'm trying to get myself off mute there.
I think what Terrell is saying, Shane, is that Councillor Hedges has asked the question about, do we know what the outcomes of the multi-agency visits were? And I think because we haven't had any representation from the responsible authorities, I think Terrell was concerned from a legal point of view how far we should go down this line of questioning.
Well, Chair, my advice to you is that this application should be treated on its merits, and that the application is for the removal of off sales, the restriction on off sales, and to add off sales, and therefore the history of the premises in terms of what may or may have happened is fairly irrelevant to what we're considering today. You have to deal with what is placed before you and why you should or should not allow the removal of the conditions and grant the application as applied for or otherwise. So previous outcomes is generally irrelevant to your consideration this morning, and I think you should be disregarding that.
Thank you for that advice. Whilst I've got you, Shane, I have a question for you as well, and it's a shame I believe Councillor Furze has had to leave for a second or two, but it's really in response to the question that he asked. Could you give us maybe some clarity about the fact that these conditions may be a bit of a hangover from previous licensing regimes? Councillor, I don't know if you were, but Councillor Furze's question was at some stage someone thought these conditions were valid, so why are we now considering taking them away?
Well, yeah, thank you, Chair. It may well be, and I'm only speculating here, is that this was a former justice's licence, which was applied for in those terms and granted with those either in the terms applied for or with standard conditions. Now, had it been applied for in terms of a members only club, it may well have come with a suite of standard conditions, or they may well have been applied for. Once the 2003 Act came into force, old licenses were transferred into the new regime, and conditions that applied to previous justices' license were incorporated into the licenses that we're dealing with today. And these, I would hazard a guess, were just incorporated as part of that administrative process, and the premises license it is restricted in that way. I don't know if that answers your question, Chair, or rather Councillor Furze's question.
I think it does, yes, I think it does.
I think, yeah.
So what we are saying is that it's not the case that a couple of years ago someone imposed these conditions for X reasons and now 2 or 3 years later someone is trying to take them off for Y reasons. We're saying that they have been part of the licence because that was the licence that was originally applied for, but our job here today is to look at what we've got in front of us and not go behind why those conditions were necessarily on the licence in the first place.
Indeed.
Thank you. Have we got any more questions from the members to the other parties? No. In that case, it's your turn, Mr. Brett. Have you got any questions that you wish to ask the other parties at this stage?
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay, that was quick. So going through my list, we don't have any, as we've said before, we don't have any of the responsible authorities, i.e. the police. So what we move to now is the other parties have about 5 minutes between the 3 of you to sum up. And then the applicant sums up, and then we adjourn and make our decision. Can I just ask a favour of you all, when we adjourn to make our decision, can you please remain in the waiting room? Because it is possible that sometimes in our deliberations we come up with other questions, and we have to have everyone present again before we can ask those questions, so it's all done in public. So it's now 5 minutes for the other parties to sum up, 5 minutes for the applicant, and then we adjourn. So other parties, do you wish to go in the same order again? In that case, Mrs. Roth.
Thank you, Chair. I think I can only repeat what I said, that as my witness has said, the track record of this premises is not good at present, and we fear very much that the development of this particular ability to do off sales, especially late at night, would cause considerable additional public nuisance, which is of course one of the licensing objectives. I'm not going to go through my entire submission again, but I would stress that it's the public nuisance thing we are very concerned about, because we have all been affected by this, and to have it increased would really be very counterproductive.
Thank you very much. Mr. Daniels.
Yes, thank you. Just very quickly, I would echo the same sentiments, that the issue of public nuisance is a problem. There's clearly a lot of noise on the street at night, where people who are using the premises stand on the pavements late at night and make a lot of noise. I'm disappointed that the applicant doesn't seem to have any concerns about this, hasn't put forward any thoughts even about what he as the responsible person is considering doing. I'm not sure he really worries too much about that side of things, which is a bit disappointing to me. This is clearly a problem, and if he's going to extend the hours, that problem will be worse. And there's nothing in what has been said to even give recognition to the fact that residents do suffer from this. It's very disappointing. And I'm afraid it doesn't bode well for the future if, in fact, as he said, his intention is to develop this into something more once current problems are over and a more free society returns, which may well mean considerably more disruption to us as residents. I find it very disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we don't have Councillor Furze anymore, so we'll move on to the applicant. You two have 5 minutes now to sum up.
Okay, so as previously stated, this is so that I can basically sell cocktails off sale. I can't provide alcohol to the price that a standard off-sale shop would be able to provide it, because that's not my business model. And that's not something that we can do with, it's not something we can do. So I don't think, having that a lot of people will be coming in to buy a cheap bottle of vodka or a cheap couple of cans of beer at 3 o'clock in the morning is something that's going to happen. We literally cannot do that. This is a discreet sales, but discreet off sales, if you see what I'm saying. It's not, mass people driving in from miles around to come up and pick up cheap alcohol. It's not that sort of thing. This is mainly designed to give us a little bit of extra income so we can support the current staff that we have right now. And maybe in the future, if we can develop this takeaway business, then, the way things are going, it's less having people in units and more people, having their own get-togethers at home. And if we can, move with the times, then it's good for our business. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We will now go into a private session for us to consider. As I say, please do feel free to have a little bit of a comfort break or make yourselves a cup of tea, but don't go too far away in case we need to ask you further questions. Mr. Curtis, can you split the committee into its private room, please? Thank you. I think we're still missing one person. Can you put yourself on mute, please, Shane? We can hear you typing.
Sorry.
Can you confirm everyone is now back with us, Mike?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. The subcommittee has decided to grant the application, and our legal officer is going to read out the reasons why.
Thank you, Chair. Members have determined an application to vary a premises licence at the Common Room, Bath. In doing so, they've taken into consideration the Licensing Act, statutory guidance, Council's policy, Human Rights Act and case law. Members are aware that the Licensing Act is a permissive regime. They must be reluctant to regulate in the absence of evidence and must only do what is appropriate and proportionate in the promotion of the licensing objectives on the information before them. Members also reminded themselves that each application must be considered on its own merits. Cumulative impact does not apply to off sales, and the hearing is a variation, not a review of the licence. The applicant stated this is a small venue trading more as a cocktail bar and is seeking to adapt its trading model. The application is primarily to give the flexibility to provide delivery and carry out service of pre-made cocktails, enabling the business to diversify in light of the current lockdown restrictions. It was envisaged that this would be low key given the costs involved. The application offered a number of measures designed to promote the licensing objectives. For example, staff training, maintaining an incident and refusals log, erection of signage, Challenge 21, and where consumption was not within the pavement licence area, all off sales must be sold in sealed containers. The interested parties raised the prevention of public nuisance objective. For example, it was feared that off sales would add to the noise nuisance already experienced, encourage groups to congregate outside the premises after closing, and cause further nuisance, including an increase in traffic. Further, they were disappointed that the applicant appeared unwilling to take responsibility for any nuisance associated with his premises. In determining this application, members reminded themselves of the statutory guidance and policy and were careful to take account of relevant written and oral representations and balance their competing interests. Members also reminded themselves that the application must be considered on its merits and they must not speculate on past or future uses. Members noted that the application was to remove the condition restriction off sales and the condition limiting alcohol sales to bona fide members of the existing club. The applicant further sought to add off sales and to align this with the current authorisations to give him flexibility. Whilst noting the content of the interested parties' representations and being mindful of their other statutory regimes, members were careful not to duplicate these regimes and disregarded issues not directly attributable to the licensing activity under consideration, namely off sales. For example, allegations of crime and antisocial behaviour within the premises, the business case, need, community benefit and traffic were disregarded. In terms of the interplay between off sales and pavement licences, members reminded themselves that off sales under the pavement licence are limited to off sales for consumption of alcohol only at the tables and chairs and not off sales in the traditional sense. With regard to nuisance, members noted that it is a function of licensing and responsible authorities to consider what constitutes public nuisance, and noted that neither the police nor environmental protection had made a representation. In terms of the removal of conditions, members noted that interested parties had accepted that the membership condition was of little, if any, effect, and accordingly believed this could reasonably be removed without detrimental effect. Whilst empathizing with the interested parties' legitimate and genuine concerns, members noted there was little evidence or information presented upon which to base a reasonable belief that aligning off sales with the current license would have a detrimental effect on the licensing objectives. In all the circumstances, therefore, it was considered that the alignment of off sales with the current license and the removal of the conditions is reasonable and appropriate. Members granted the license as applied for and delegate authority to the licensing officer to issue the license with conditions consistent with the operating schedule. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Shane. Just to let everyone know, first of all, thank you very much indeed for participating in today's meeting. If you wish to call for a licence review at any stage, there are mechanisms by which you can do that. So I hope you don't take today's, if you're one of the other parties, I hope you don't take today's decision as a way of us saying that we didn't empathise with your concerns. And I hope that as the applicant, Mr. Brett, you will do everything that you can to make sure that aligning the off sales with your on sales doesn't cause any additional harm. If you do need to talk about how to do a review at any stage, I suggest you talk to one of your councillors, Councillor Furs or Councillor Craig, and they will advise you on what evidence would be necessary in order to call a review. So with that said, at 11:32, I declare this meeting closed. Thank you all very much indeed.